Hi Ajay, thanks so much for joining us. Really excited to have you for this session because venture debt is this mythical character for a lot of people, and you've been doing this for over 15 years. You run Altiria, which is one of the larger venture debt funds. So I just thank you for doing this.
Thank
And
you for having
I'm
me.
going to delve deep into this quickly because I know we've got 10 minutes to do this and we always run out of time and have to edit. And I've got a whole list of questions for you.
Sure.
Um, the first question is, so I know venture debt globally is really popular, right?
Right.
Uh, and I know in India we're still at about 4 or 5% of the VC industry. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong on that. Explain to a basic layman what is venture debt, in general.
Yeah. So look, venture debt is actually a little bit of a mystical word because it's a blanket term essentially that covers situations in which a startup that does not have operating cash flow or asset collateral receives a loan in exchange for paying interest and granting certain equity rights. Okay. So at the very basics, venture debt is any debt that's available to a startup. We don't believe that startups at all sizes should look at debt as a way to raise funding. So for us, the definition, and we can get into the reasons for that, but for us, the definition of venture debt is strictly debt that's available to any company or any startup that's raised a Series A and beyond. So a certain minimum threshold of capital is important to be able to take venture debt, right? So it's any form of term debt, typically medium term debt, 2 years to 3 years kind of funding that a startup can take in addition to its equity funding.
Now you know what is going to be the next obvious question. Why particular stage and after? You stepped into that one. So
Yeah. No, look, venture debt is debt at the end of the day, and unlike equity, there's an obligation to to repay the loan, right? So equity doesn't carry an obligation to repay, loan does. And so when a company signs up to taking debt, they're taking on the implicit obligation to pay the debt over a period of time as per the terms and conditions that has been agreed to. Now, taking debt obviously is beneficial when the company is doing well because it can gain from the leverage that it gets. It gets additional cash runway. And again, we can talk about the benefits of venture debt. But essentially, when the company is doing well and when the quarterly growth is up and to the right, debt can really help to leverage the business. But the problem is that when things go sideways in startups, right? And there are those few quarters in every startup's life when things go sideways or go down for a few quarters, and at those times it exacerbates the load on the companies and magnifies the downside issue. When on top of the managing the downside, the company also has to continue to repay and honor its obligations to repay debt. So taking debt, therefore, should be reserved for situations when either the company has the cash flow and the reserves of cash to tide over some of those temporary quarterly downturns, or it has either the cash flow built from the stock of cash built from cash flow of the business, or if it has cash stock that's built from raising equity rounds. And generally speaking, in startups, they don't have cash flow that emanates from the business. It's mostly the cash that is raised from an equity round. And so therefore, our recommendation is that startups do not look at debt unless they have that minimum threshold of cash that allows them to absorb sort of the temporary downturns that you generally tend to see in startups on a monthly or a quarterly basis.
So then the next obvious question, and pardon my language, but is this the shittiest time to be approaching a debt investor, like Corona times? Or okay, ऐसा नहीं है, or what?
Look, the benefits of debt continue to be there, and I think that's obvious. That sustains through downturns, upturns when you have the cash. The situation is that debt is not also a good thing to take when you're facing existential risk in the company, or when there is a binary sort of element to the success of your business, such as that which comes at times like this when some business models get fundamentally broken by the economic conditions that exist around us. So that said, if you're a company that has raised equity, if you're a company that recognizes or for whom this period is a temporary setback, not a fundamental setback to the business,
Yeah.
then there may still be opportunities for you to benefit from the leverage that debt brings. But I think,
would you guys consider that? I mean, would you look at a great company that has a great track record, has good pedigree investors, but you know that there is a temporary glitch because of Corona?
oh, absolutely. And I think most companies in our portfolio today are going through what we would think is a temporary glitch. We've been fortunate, I think, in some cases that that we've dodged a lot of those bullets where we've avoided investing in companies whose model has now been fundamentally broken by what we're seeing. Yeah. But we are seeing lots of our companies, go through a temporary issue of, revenues having fallen off a cliff, clients not stepping up to buy, purchase, whatever. But these are all temporary issues. I'm not talking about the few companies in our portfolio that have actually benefited from the experience of stay at home and work from home and so on. But the vast majority of companies in our portfolio have taken a temporary hit, and we continue to lend to new companies. We are doing new deals. We have a pipeline that's fairly healthy at this point. We did take a step back in March, April, and May when we weren't sure about, there were bigger questions about timing, about fundamentally what is this period we're going through.
Yeah.
I think some of those questions obviously continue to remain. But at least at this point, what we're seeing is that there will be at some point, there is this light at the end of the tunnel. Whether it's 6 months away or a year away, I think is the question. But fundamentally, there is. And for us, some of those companies, we are looking at them. We have issued new term sheets out starting from June. We started relooking at some of the old term sheets that we had issued, revalidating those, going back out to companies. So we are fully in business as usual mode right now. We're engaging on new deals and new prospects as we speak.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What are some of the criteria that Altiria takes into account while evaluating a company? Like we have certain things,
sure,
that we look at which are attractive to us. What are some
sure.
of the things you all look at?
Yeah, so I think for us, as going back to the first definition I gave of venture debt for us, which is a company that's raised Series A and beyond. So for us, it's very, very important that the company have raised
Series A, and what does that mean to you? Because that's across the board.
Yes, I was getting to that. So for us, a Series A is defined as the first institutional round of venture capital.
Okay.
And to the extent it's a VC firm, all the better, as compared to a strategic. But for us, a Series A is defined as the first round of institutional capital for at least $3 to $4 million. Where you see, an institutional VC come in and take whatever 20, 25, 30% of the company and ride along. So for us, it's very important to understand who the investor is. We do believe that some investors, their money is greener than that of other investors. That's just born out of time. Having done this for 15 years now. It gives you a certain amount of insight into how some VCs work. There's much greater comfort working with some VCs who we've known to step up and support their companies through times of stress. And those are obviously VCs that we like. We like VCs who understand our model, get that what we're doing is beneficial not just to their portfolio companies, but also to them and their portfolio outcomes as a VC investor. And therefore, the need to work together between a VC and a lender to support the underlying portfolio company. So first and foremost for us is who's the VC? How much money has the investor put into the company? How much more money does the VC have to put over and beyond what they've already invested in future rounds? How likely is the investor to continue to support the existing portfolio company in case the company needs additional support to come in? And obviously the working relationship with the VC in the past, our history, track record, experience, all those go towards helping us to form an opinion about the underlying portfolio company. Then we look at the portfolio company itself, and the fundamental question there is what is the company's probability or ability to raise the next round of capital, which could be 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever down the road. Because it's that continued ability to raise the next round of capital that helps us to preserve our credit, the quality of our credit, right? So the loan repayment or the repayment of our debt comes not just from the existing cash in the company, but also from future rounds of cash that the company raises.
Yeah.
So having a clear understanding of how that next round of capital is going to happen is important. And one of the things that we will look at for that is to understand the business model of the company and try and make an assessment of whether the business model is in a space that is likely to be interesting for investors 12 months later. Is it a business that's growing that will continue to be attractive as a growth investment for an investor 12, 15 months down the road?
Ajay, can I ask you a question? Would you look at every sector, or would you look at particular sectors, or is tech underlying? Can you just, or it's just
no? So we are sector agnostic, okay, and that's another differentiation I'd say between the model that we have in India and those in markets like the US. In the US, VC and also venture debt tend to be much more tightly concentrated around companies that have intellectual property or technology at their core.
Yeah.
In India, the playing field is much wider. So it's not about companies that have technology. It's about companies that create differentiation in the marketplace through a number of other value drivers. So a first mover advantage could give you that advantage in India. It could be a unique process. It could be a unique team. It could be a new way to deliver a product. It also could be technology. And so we have to, in India, look beyond companies that are tech to companies that are doing something innovative and be able to grab our, credit hand, so to speak, around that company and figure out a structure that works from a lending perspective, right? So for us, we are sector agnostic. What matters for us is the combination of the three elements, which is for us the investor, the business plan, and of course the founding team and the promoter team that's going to lead this forward. We need to know that the team has what it takes to keep driving this business forward, right? I mean, you've heard of this adage, which is, it's not the idea, it's the execution that matters, and that's very true. So you could have a great investor, you could have a wonderful business model, but if you don't have the execution and the team behind it, it's unlikely that the company would scale to a level where Series B is a possibility or it can happen, which means then our credit position becomes very difficult, right? So these are the components we'd look at. Sector agnostic. There are good deals to be done in every vertical.
Yeah.
There are also great verticals where you could have really bad companies. And so, we look at the construct in every single transaction to determine whether this is one that we can lend into or not.
So what are some of the companies that you guys have invested in that you are like, wow, this is great? Or some of the sectors that you've been excited about in general?
So times like this, and this changes, right, with the macroeconomic factors around you. Right now, I think what we've seen is delivery, logistics, healthcare, remote diagnostics, for example, is done well.
Yeah.
These are the sectors in which our investments, some of our investments, are doing really, really well.
Okay.
And I think this is the lens that will be used going forward to evaluate companies increasingly by VCs, which is the resilience of models to fundamental factors like this, to further pandemics, to how people will work remotely,
Yeah.
not just through pandemics, but even beyond it, right? Because I think we're all getting to a point where we're all saying, this is now getting to be something that we're more comfortable with, working from home, working remotely, working with distributed teams.
Yeah.
How does a new business model today fit into that model? I think these are the things that we're going to be asking ourselves as investors, as venture debt participants, and that's, I think, where the future is going to be. So that's increasingly where I think the more investment dollars will flow.
Okay. So we're running out of time, so we need to wrap this up. But I want to ask you the last couple of questions. One which is a tough one, and then I'll let you sugarcoat after that. It's if a company that takes debt and then faces financial issues, what happens? Yeah. That's one of the things that I want to understand for companies.
Right. Look, yeah, I mean, we can't get around that. I mean, that's a fair question to ask, because at the end of the day, like I said, this is these are loans, or this is debt that we provide, and there's a debt obligation to repay. Um, we've been doing this now a long time, right? I mean, I've done this 15 years, and I can tell you there's many, many instances where companies start out looking like AAA risk, but, sort of veer off path. For us, I think what's important is not to be caught off guard and to be caught surprised by where the company has suddenly woken up on a Tuesday afternoon and said, look, it's going to be hard for us to repay. It seldom happens like that. And what happens is it's a gradual veering off the course as the company progresses month to month to month. To a point where you look back in 6 months and you see a significant divergence between where the plan was and where the company's actually gone. And what's important is, as a lender, as also a borrower, it's incumbent on both of us to keep tabs on how the company is doing on a month-and-month basis and see what can be done to address it before the divergence gets too wide and becomes unaddressable, right? So for us, and I can tell you how we work on it, is we do monthly calls with all of our companies, understand where the company is, given where they should have been. If they go off plan, do you recognize you're off plan? What are you doing to come back on plan? And then we go, of course, if the divergence gets too large, to go back to the VC, who is on the board and obviously privy to a lot of the conversations that are happening at this level, to say what's happening in the company, how are you guys trying to fix it? And most cases, look, this is the way it's going to happen, right? I mean, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen is the phrase. But the reality is you've got to understand that startups go through these situations. They go through ups and downs, and it's like a roller coaster ride, right? You go up and down and you go sideways. You just have to hang on and enjoy the ride. And a lot of times these situations are temporary. And there are things that you can do as a company, as a board, as an investor to fix these things. So what we look for is how is the company fixing this issue before it gets too big and becomes unaddressed or unaddressable. And in most cases that I've seen, if the problem is fixable, in which case, many cases they are fixable, the VC and the founder will find ways to get that addressed. Because remember that the first pain always comes to the VC and to the founder. It's not to the lender, because at the end of the day, we are facilitating primarily what is a relationship between the VC and the founder here. And so to us, the more important question is, what is the company doing to fix this? How can we facilitate that? Sometimes if we need to, we will help shuffle the terms of our loan if we need to make sure that people get the respite they need, to put their business back on track. But we fully understand that the bulk of the effort of fixing the issue needs to be done by the combination of the investor and the founder. We come in to help the process, but we're not the ones that are the first port of call for a problem situation. Having said that, we've been successful in this business and survived in this business because we've been in a position where we can show that all three can get out of a bad situation with a good outcome, which facilitates and helps everyone. And if you get into, if you start gaming it to where we say that, look, I don't care what happens to the VC, I don't care what happens to the founder, I want my money back at any cost, then you become somewhat of an untouchable in that sense, because then nobody wants to do business with you if you become an unreliable or an impatient lender. So I think the first thing to do when you get in to a tight spot is not to panic, is to be patient, to allow the company to figure its way out, because before you realize it, they've realized what's happening in the company, they as in the founding team, right, the promoter team driving it. So is give them the space to figure things out, give them the space to fix the issue. And be supportive. You don't get to be in this business and stay in the business if you become a nervous lender, right? So you have to have the ability to understand startups go through this. You have to have the ability to be flexible. But at the end of the day, we are lenders. We make our money when we get 100 rupees of the loan back. We don't have the upside, the same upside that investors get or the founding teams get. And so there has to be a little bit of a balancing act that we need to do on that.
Thanks for that detailed answer. Just wanna, so people who are looking for venture debt, any words of advice? And in general, venture debt usually comes in when the industry's matured a little bit. Globally, when you look at it, there has to be VC funding. People have to be able to see exits, cash being flushed, in different places. what is your view on the startup industry in India? Where do you think we're headed with venture debt? And second question is your advice to early stage entrepreneurs that will look to venture debt in the next, 6 months to a year.
Yeah, so look, in terms of the industry, we have a ways to go. This industry is 12 years old at most. So I mean, I remember when I was doing this in 2005, there were no more than 4 or 5 VCs in the marketplace, right? And since then, there's been a mushrooming of investors, and there's no better time to be an entrepreneur than now. It just gets better and better every 6 months, every year you find a new class. So now you're seeing the resurgence of sort of family offices coming into the private investing space. And so there was a gap earlier, which you might have said was a gap, which is smaller checks, which is now being filled in. I mean, funds like yours too, right? The smaller funds, but those that carry the experience of founders and entrepreneurs from the past coming in now to help entrepreneurs of the future. So I think there were gaps that are now being rapidly filled in. So I think I'm very, very enthusiastic and very optimistic about the future of the industry. As the equity class, asset class grows, the venture debt asset class will grow. And as you pointed out at the start, venture debt is still only about 4 or 5% of the industry. In the US, it's about 15%, 20%, somewhere in that range. So there's a lot of headroom for the industry to grow. So debt as an asset class is bound to grow, and access to debt will get easier for startups as they go. For startups, I think the main thing right now is to continue to focus on building the business, because that's, when the business growth doesn't happen, nothing else falls into place.
Yeah.
But to focus on that, get the right partners on board on the equity side. I think that's very, very critical. And many times I've seen companies rush into getting equity from the first investor that comes by and offers without understanding what value is this investor going to bring to my business.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to bring the right partners on board. And as the sort of the traction builds and the Series A looks like a possibility, come have a chat with us and we'll see what we can do. We also have a program called Activate, where we start engaging with companies much before even Series A, where we help them connect into corporates who are looking to, in turn, connect with startups for their innovation programs, right? So we help startups connect with corporates. We help startups connect with each other to co-develop, co-work on or co-market products. We help them introduce them to service providers. For the most part, all of this is done
all
free.
around nice guys. Okay, got it.
So how can we be helpful?
Except when it comes time to take out money. I'm kidding. Listen, this has been so great. Thank you so much for doing this. I
Pleasure.
really appreciate it.